We moved to a town when I was 5. It was any normal town, nothing strange about it or anything. But when we got to our new house, I felt a sudden sickness come over me. It was a nice, big white house. It had a beautiful yard and it was nicer than our old house. But it still didn't feel right. About a week, we had been fully moved in. All the rooms were upstairs. There were 4 upstairs rooms. I picked the one on the very left side of the house. It had 2 windows with great views. It was pretty big. My younger brother got the room next to mine, my parents next to his, and on the right side was the computer room. There were 2 computers and a ton of files and stuff. My dad worked in there most of the time. I hated that room. It was nice, but I always dreaded going in there. It was always cold and it gave off a very strange feeling. One day, as I was getting something from the closet in there, I noticed a hatch on the ceiling. It was painted like the ceiling and it blended in. But there was a cutout of a square. I asked my dad about it and he laughed. He told me it was an entrance to the attic and they had not told us there was an attic. But that is fine. And just to leave it alone. Somehow that made the room even worse. Now I knew that a 6-year-old can be afraid of things and that's just how it is. And they grow out of it. But I wasn't afraid of monsters or things like that. I don't even get why I was afraid of that room. It just was. As I got older, I tried to ignore it. It was hard because lots of stuff I needed for my homework was in there, but I did my best. When I was about 8, there began to be noises coming from the roof. Small tapping sounds every 10 minutes. I told my parents, but they just passed it as nightmares or my imagination. But I knew what I heard. It wasn't just my imagination. After that, I heard noises more often. Sometimes tapping, sometimes footsteps. No matter the sound, I could hear it, and I knew where it came from. I would look up at the ceiling, hoping it would stop, but it didn't. It didn't stop until I woke up in the morning. One day, I just had enough. I begged my parents to open the attic. They looked confused, but reluctantly agreed. We went to the computer room and my dad got a ladder and opened up the hatch. Dust flew around everywhere and we all coughed. It was pitch black up there. "Okay, who's going first?" my dad asked jokingly. I looked up at him and shrugged and turned on his flashlight. Then he disappeared into the darkness. I followed not far behind him. At first, as we all saw, was dust and boxes. Then as we moved across the small attic, we noticed a light. It was a small lantern. But why was it there and why was it turned on? Then to our horror, we saw food wrappers. Food, clothes, water, paper, and some more stuff. It was scattered around the small light of the lantern. My dad grabbed my hand and dragged me down out of there and rushed my brother, me and my mum outside. He called the police and soon after they arrived. Not 15 minutes later they come out with a dirty, crazy looking man who was screaming bloody murder as the police dragged him away in handcuffs. We moved soon after that. I wasn't told much, just that we were moving and that everything was fine. Now I'm 16. Just recently my parents told me what really happened that day. They told me a man had been living in our attic and he had been writing stuff by scratching it with a knife onto the wall and the floor and stuff, like, "I see you." But what scared me the most is that they found a hole in the floor of the attic, which was the roof for me, right above my bed. I knew I wasn't crazy.